the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet make up the MIND diet. The DASH diet's been around for many years. It was started for high blood pressure, for chronic high blood pressure problems, and it was very effective. The only big difference between the MIND diet and the Mediterranean diet, first of all, the Mediterranean diet is the one that's recommended now by the Alzheimer's Association, also recommended by the Cancer Association and by Heart Association. So these are the three major systems that have recommended that the Mediterranean diet be used. The only difference between this diet and MIND diet is that the MIND diet's a little more restrictive. It really, you can have about all the same foods, only not as often. And they do restrict the MIND diet is restricting the dairy products more than the Mediterranean diet. So you did get a pyramid, I believe, was sent on ahead. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Okay. The pyramid was sent on ahead, and there are guidelines which you have then. And one of the reasons that this diet has caught on to the associations that I just mentioned, Alzheimer's and heart and cancer, is that it is really balanced. I know that you have a choice out there, probably dozens of diets, but they need to be balanced in all the nutrients. If they're not, then we can run into a problem long term. And we're looking at a long-term eating program here, not just a diet to take today and finish up in a week or finish up in a month or finish up when I've lost my 10 pounds. So this is supposed to be healthy eating plan. And that's what the reason we looked at the Mediterranean diet is that you don't have to really go out and get a lot of different foods that you've never eaten before. It's basically things that you're very familiar with, easy to put together. In fact, one of the advantages of the Mediterranean diet is that they don't advocate many sauces or additives. They want just real food and make it as simple as possible. And that way it's as nutritious as possible. So these are the things, and then it's easy to prepare and it's easy to stay with. And if we're going to develop a healthy eating habit, it means we have to have the same thing over and over again. Well, there's a lot of variety on the Mediterranean diet. It isn't one that you have to eat, carrots and apples only. It's you need to have a good variety. So I think it's all pretty well mentioned in here. And I just wanted to bring that out because there are levels with your dementia loved ones when you're not going to be able to follow even the Mediterranean diet exactly. There will be times when we'll be happy to have them eat anything. Not quite anything, but not as Sherry just did before the meeting. So we can't do that. But there will be, I'm telling on her. So no, there will be a time when maybe you're not going to want to stick exactly to a particular program, even the Mediterranean one. But basically this is the healthy way to eat. The next thing I wanted to mention was food changes.
Pat, may I interrupt just a minute, please?
Sure.
I wanted to remind everyone that's viewing our invitation that went out for this meeting yesterday in case you didn't scroll all the way down, has this Mediterranean diet, the pyramid. You have this if you received the email that we sent you yesterday. So I just wanted to inject that in case you haven't seen it yet. Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
No problem. I'm glad you did. That's good. Yeah, because it's something that you need to look at in course and study a little bit. It's rather than just listening to it. what I wanted to mention was a lot of the times one of the first things that comes up when we talk about diet with the dementia loved ones are the cravings, such as sugar cravings or salt cravings. And one of the reasons for that, we don't have a real good handle on why is a sweet, but you'll find that almost all of your dementia loved ones have a real craving for sweets. If you didn't do anything, if you didn't adjust anything, if you didn't let them just do their own thing, they're going to eat sweets, they're going to eat carbohydrates only. So if they're living alone, and you'll find as they progress, that even at a very early beginning, you're going to walk into the house sometime and you're going to find the chips and you're going to find the Oreo cookies. And one of the things that happens too is they eat too much, because we start losing, as the dementia progresses, they start losing that sense of hunger and the sense of being full. So it can affect either way. And sometimes it affects both. But so many times they do not have the sense of being full. So they're going to want more and more and more, especially with desserts. And so many times at facilities, we find that they're, taking desserts from other people, or they may want, tell the people that are serving them that they need the second and third dessert. So one of the reasons is that as we get older, and this is for all of us, but more so with the dementia loved ones, is that we lose the sense with our salivary glands as far as taste is concerned. So you're going to lose some of that sweet taste buds, and you're losing some salt ones. Sometimes not, some one or the other. So let's start with the dementia. Mainly is the beginning is usually is usually a sugar. They crave sugar. This is a real craving. They've got less taste buds for sugar, so therefore they want more and more in order to get any taste of sugar. So they end up eating too much sugar. So we have to come up as caregivers with alternatives, because just saying you can't eat those things isn't going to do any good. We all know that. So we need to come up with alternatives for that. And the same thing happens with salt. If you find that they're salting things much more than they used to do or ever did, it could be that they aren't getting that taste and they need to have extra. The other thing that goes along with that is the dehydration. I think the first symptom for dehydration is confusion. We often have heard that confusion is also the first symptom for a urinary tract infection. So when that confusion becomes more, in other words, if it's new, if it's different, if it's increased, then there's probably a reason for that. I know you get used to a certain amount of confusion, and so you don't pay a lot of attention to it sometimes. But look for a new or increased amount of confusion, because it may be due to dehydration or it may be due to an infection. Either one can be treated. And most of us do get dehydrated, especially in this weather that we've had recently. But really, it's been shown, there's been studies to show that the general population can be dehydrated to a certain degree, hopefully not to the point of confusion. So, but dehydration can cause a lot of confusion for a dementia loved one, and it could even lead to the point where they end up needing to be treated medically. So one of the things is that most people will say, well, my loved one won't drink water at all. And I understand that, because that's pretty universal. Water seems to be a hard thing to get the dementia loved ones. And it's hard for most elderly people to get them to drink water. One of the problems for as we get older is that we don't want to have to go to the bathroom more often, so we don't drink water, and thinking that we don't have to, especially if they're thinking they're going out to dinner or out to a party or something like that. So what do you give them instead? How do you get some water? How do you get fluid into a person that's not drinking well at all? One of the ways is that there are foods. Right now we're in the season for the melons. All the melons have a good amount of water. Zucchini has water, celery has water. There's a lot of foods that actually are full of water. So that if we increase those in the diet, that may help. The other thing that helps is popsicles. At certain levels, popsicles are really enjoyed. I've had people that have really gotten addicted to popsicles. I had one lady that just, she wanted a popsicle every few minutes. As soon as she finished one, wanted another one. So we had to work on that problem. But I like the fruit juice popsicles rather than the food coloring Kool-Aid popsicles. Dole has them. I think they have pineapple, they have orange, of course. You have popsicles that have are really fruit juice, and so then those are a little bit better than the other popsicles. But anything that will get fluid in, obviously soups, they don't have to be real hot. A lot of times there comes a time when it's easier to get fluid, get liquids into people than solid food. And so sometimes getting the food, having, like I say, soups that maybe are not real hot, but are still enjoyable and will get fluid into them. So, and remember that they may have lost the feeling of being full or being hungry. So you need to work with that as we're working. So the next point was the behaviors. And I don't know if any of you have had any of these problems, but they do occur. Eating too much, eating too often, eating not enough. And the question then is how to handle these. Again, if somebody's living alone, one of the first signs we find many times is that they may have put lunch in the microwave, and at 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, we find that potato or piece of meat or whatever is still in the microwave. They have forgotten to take it out. And the same thing happens with with home care, is that many times we have home care aides coming in and they will prepare food, or you have people getting Meals on Wheels and it's already here. But if they forget, it can still be there. So I've gone into many homes where I have found 3-4 days of Meals on Wheels still in the refrigerator. So especially be concerned about the people that are living alone. If you're, if you're living right with them and they have a caregiver that can watch these things, then of course it's a little bit different. But the question then, let's say, is how to handle the situation where I'm hungry and they have just finished eating, maybe 5 minutes. The natural reaction is you just ate. It's only been 5 minutes, you just ate. Well, that isn't the thing to do, of course. So we never want to confront a situation. We never want to argue. We never want to disagree. So even though they just got up from the table, you just made it into the living room, possibly, and now they're ready to eat again, that's pretty much a good sign that maybe you need to look at feeding them about 5 to 6 times a day rather than trying 3 meals a day. So you end up with maybe 5 snacks a day. And again, you balance the snacks then with a protein, a carbohydrate, and a grain, which is another type of carbohydrate, of course. So you could have fruit, grain, and for example, you could have cheese and crackers and a piece of fruit. that could be one of your 5 meals. And you do small portions, and therefore you are able, they aren't going to, and if you do that every 3 hours, which brings you up to pretty much a full day. And if you do that, they may not have this period that they have to have, are saying to you that they're hungry all the time. And so that's sort of a way to do it. It's also been found to be a very nutritious way, because the smaller the meals, the easier to digest. And usually when you're working with dementia loved ones, you're working with people that aren't really that active. They're more sedentary than they used to be, probably some time ago. And so because they're more sedentary, they don't need the quantity probably that they needed, but they do need a good balance of nutrients. And one of the things that we find the biggest deficit of is protein. So we need to really work on protein. And the, again, Mediterranean diet is getting protein, instead of getting it all from meat, they're introducing nuts, of course, and combining grains and starches. And that way they can get the protein. So I wanted to spend more some time on talking about the presentation of food. This is a picture of my plate. It's actually from myplate.gov. And I think you can see that? You can see that there are 4 divisions. This is just a demonstration plate, but there are 4 divisions. What you can't see too well is that they're not even. So we're asking you to, for a good healthy eating, to divide your plate in 4. You have on one side vegetables and grains, and you'll see that there's more vegetables than grain. And on the other side, you have fruit and protein. And you'll see that there is more protein. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you the right things. Sorry, messed up. This is fruit and vegetables, with more vegetables than fruit. This is grain, which is breads, of course, and all your grains, and protein, and more grains than the protein. One of the things that happens with eating with the dementia loved ones is that sometimes there's just plain lack of appetite. Again, they're not very active, and there can be just plain a lack of appetite and no motivation that they even need to eat. And one of the things that we've found, and this would also be true for those that are maybe eating too much and want to eat all the time, is that many times we use plates like this that are almost 11 inches, actually 10.5 inches big. Well, we found out with weight management that if you would use a plate smaller, let me just get it, such as this. This is 9 inches. This is 11. Quite a difference. So if we fill this one up, 2 things can happen. First of all, you can eat too much because you want a full plate. Or you can look at that and say, oh, I can't, eat that much at all. And they end up not eating anything. Or you can put it on a smaller plate and it doesn't take as much food. Put it on a plate. I'm sorry? The other problem with this is that it's white. And we found out that white is not, it would be okay if we want people not to eat as much. But if you're looking to stimulate the appetite, bright colors work better. Now, the other thing is that this is Malmamer, which is unbreakable. I really recommend with using unbreakable food, plates, cups, bowls, everything unbreakable. Because once the dementia loved one has, maybe it's dropped or for some reason it broke, you're going to have to start all over because they don't want to spill. They don't want to break things. And so you'll find that the negative about using this kind of cookware or kind of dinnerware is that you really can't microwave this most of the time. You have to look at your dishes to make sure they're microwavable if you're using non-breakable things. There was a study done in Boston University. I don't know exactly how long ago, but there was a study done to say that they found that red plates and red utensils helped stimulate the appetite. In fact, on the box that these fork and spoon came from, it has a picture of the cup. You see that? Cup and bowls. The bowls are shaped so that when someone would go to scoop, it wouldn't go flying across the room. So these aren't really available. This particular brand is not available retail, but it's in many catalogs, and it's also at Amazon, of course. I've written up a resource list so that you don't have to write all that out. We are going to send a resource list out to you. I have two examples of online purchasing for utensils. You'll see that this kind of a utensil has a much bigger handle. So the person that's using this, if they don't have good control and good grip, or even if they have arthritis and have not ability to really stabilize the utensils, they find that this works much better and they're able to use it. Today's world, we have even restaurants, the big thing is using bowls now, right? They're serving foods in the bowls. And so bowls many times are better than a plate because you don't want to have your loved one having problems getting that food up to their mouth, because that's going to stop them from eating. They're just not going to bother. And you're going to have to really work harder. The other thing that helps with when you're drinking something, you'll find that they do have special cups that are cut out so that when they tip it up, it doesn't all fall on their face if they've tipped it too far. So there's covers now for almost everything. I mean, every restaurant you go to, you could get a cover. So there's many covers. The nice thing about most of the covers that you get on water bottles now for the people that are doing exercise and carrying water with them all the time is that it has a little cover, and you'll see that the opening here is very small so that you don't have that extra spillage problem around. And so that's important. One of the things that happens with presentation of food is that as caregivers, we sometimes get into habits of feeding our loved one at a separate place, maybe in their favorite recliner chair with a tray table or something. That's sort of nice. And it comes with, helping and preparing and taking care of somebody. But it's not the best as far as eating and socializing, because socializing and eating go together. And so you'll find in facilities, of course, that most of the time they try to take them to a central dining area where they can eat with each other. And so I really recommend that if you are home taking care of a loved one, that you eat together. Basically, it's much better, if at all possible, depending on ambulation and ability, to eat at a table. The table is for eating. The chair is for watching television or just conversing. But rather than you feeding your loved one maybe in one room and then you go to another room and eat yourself, that isn't the best for either one of you. The other thing is that when you sit together, you can cue your loved one into enjoying their food better. because sometimes they really don't know. They don't have the recall of how this food tastes. So maybe saying, "Oh, I really like these carrots," or the potatoes are done so well today. Bring it up, make it a little more appealing. And it's what I call cueing, because what you tell them, then they will listen to that. And it will help them then to enjoy what they're eating rather than just having to eat, even if they do have some feeling that they want to eat at that time. So sometimes I know at some facilities you'll see that they put bibs, the real large bibs on people. And some of your loved ones will resist that. And so if you have any resistance with clothing, you'll find that most of the time the resistance will be coming because you have to put it over their head. So try not to put things over their head if there is resistance. If there's not, that's fine. But many times with resistance to putting on a sweater or a jacket or something that goes over their head, it's because they don't know what's happening, especially if you're behind them putting it over their head. So same thing happens with tying a bib, or Jim was mentioning that you can make a nice bib out of a dish towel, and that's true. That's very easy. But if there is a problem, I often have them just use if there is resistance. And yet you do want to cover up their clothes, because you don't want to have to feel that they're afraid to drop their foods or to have it, and there probably will be spillage. So what I usually like to do is have people I ask them to just put their hands out front, and I'm in front of them, so they can see what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to be hurting them at all. With their hands out in front, I can have a shirt or a blouse, and I can just put it over their arms. I like to use short sleeve rather than long sleeve. I can just put it over them up to their neck. Then I can go around in the back and I can button it. And then that can just be over their regular clothes. Then when we're done eating, I just unbutton it, take it off, and take care of it. And I don't have to worry about, did I get anything on their nice blouse or shirt or whatever. You're trying to set everything up so that there's not a problem. Anything you can do to make it easier, safer, and without any distress or stress is better. So I'm running short on time. I do want to talk about the enteral nutrition, which is supplementation such as Boost or Ensure. If it's supplementation to the diet, which is usually what Ensure is, the doctor will say, they're losing weight, or they're not gaining weight, or they need to eat more, or we might not be getting enough protein, and they recommend that you add Ensure. Two things are important. There are many different varieties of Ensure and Boost and even Glucerna. So you've got to be careful. First of all, you need to know, why am I giving this? Am I giving this just to get extra calories? Then I want the one with the highest calories. Am I giving it because they're not getting enough protein? Then I want the one with the most protein. There's one for everything. There are a lot of different ones. So just to say, give them Ensure doesn't really help you as a caregiver to know exactly which one to choose. So you need to know, why am I giving it to them? And if it's as a supplement, it means that it's not then given at the meal. It's in between meals. And it should be at least 2 hours before. Because if you give it just before a meal, then you're going to cut down on what they're going to eat. And you usually want to do it as a supplement to what they're eating. In other words, we want to continue our balanced diet. We want our balanced nutrients to come from food, as we talked about at the beginning. but then we need extra, and we get it in a liquid form because it's easier to take it than in a solid form many times. There are dental problems, of course, that can interfere with chewing, with swallowing. There could be swallowing problems. There's several things that can come up just within mechanical things that can come up to interfere with eating. So we need to, another thing, remember I mentioned to you that if there was a new confusion, that it could be dehydration. Well, if there's a new change in how they're eating. In other words, they used to eat, these 3 meals, or they used to eat their 5 meals with no problem. I put it in front of them and they ate and everything was fine. And today she won't eat anything. That's a clue that you need to see what happened. Something probably happened. Could be a whole mouth full of sores, for example. It could be that if they have a plate that it's broken or something's wrong with it and it's hurting them. There's all sorts of things that could be. So be very observant with new and oncoming things, because there's usually a reason, and unfortunately they're not able to tell you that reason. And so we have to be detectives to figure it out. So the other thing I wanted to mention, so there are, and whenever you give them liquids, even with water, should be smaller quantities. The same thing with the Ensure. Don't just sit that can of Ensure next to them. You need to put it in a glass, small amounts, and then frequently have the small amounts. You want to finish probably the whole can in between meals, but I know it's a little extra work, but you'll find it's much better. If your loved one does not have swallowing problems, has not had a stroke, has no problem with swallowing, you'll find the straws work better. It's so much easier for them to use a straw most of the time than to pick that glass up, be afraid that they're going to spill it, maybe shake a little bit, and have it too full, all sorts of things. You'll find the straw many times they'll drink much better for you. So those are just some of those things. If you've ever been into a rehab facility with your loved one or yourself, or any of the assisted livings, you know that one of the things there is a magic cup. And the magic cup is an ice cream situation. And I put that on the resource list. I have all the Boost and Glucerna and Ensure varieties written on this resource list that Jim's going to send out to you right after our program. So magic cup. And there's another ice cream that's available. It's called Thrive. And it's in a Dixie cup type thing. And it is available at Target, Walmart, and Publix. Unfortunately, it's not always available. It only comes in vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. And I find that sometimes it's not available as often as I would like it to be, even at Publix. So, but you can look for it. Thrive is from Hormel, I think, is putting it out. And I put that on the list, as I said. It contains 9 grams of protein and 6 grams of fiber, 24 vitamins, and 4 probiotics. And it's also listed as a nectar if you're into needing to have thickened liquids for swallowing problems. So Thrive ice cream could be used even if the person is on swallowing aspiration concerns. Also on our list, on the resource list, I have added some spices. I've added the kinds of nuts to add to the Mediterranean pyramid that I gave you. Just gives you a little extra. Almonds and walnuts are always listed, but there are some others that are almost as good. So I wrote those all down for you. So I have the dining supplies, adaptive supplies, such as that spoon and fork that I showed you and the bowls. I have home delivered meals. There are meals that you can get delivered to your home, frozen and fresh. There are some that come with, you've seen them on television where they just send you the ingredients and you have to make it. But there are others that they send a whole meal. You put them in the freezer and then you can put the whole meal in the microwave. So I've got that all listed for you. And I also have a source from Hormel about prepared, thickened, and pureed foods. If you ever have to get into that, that's been a real hard one. And now we have some that are already prepared and they're already thickened, and you don't have to add the powder and figure out the thickening yourself. So I hope I've given you something to work with, and certainly open for questions.